Hello and welcome to Business Today's fortnightly show, The Cover, in which we discuss the cover story and other interesting stories of that particular issue. With me, I have two very special guests this time, Managing Editor of Business Today magazine, Anand Adhikari, and the Executive Editor, Krishna Gopalan. Welcome, Anand and Krishna, to the show. First things first, Krishna, I want to come to the cover story, which is on Tata Steel and Tata Steel's India focus. Tell us a little more about what the story entails and how you went about putting the story together.
Sort of the premise for the story was actually the spate of acquisitions they did starting 2018. And the trigger was the IBC, and they picked up rather interesting assets, Bhushan Steel being one of them. They also picked up Nilachal and Usha Martin's long steel business in the process. There's a very clear intent to look at India as a market full of potential. One must go back in time to understand the big ticket acquisition they did in 2007, where they bought out Chorus for $13 billion. As luck would have it, the global financial crisis came in and it kind of upset the business plans to some extent. But over the last 3 to 4 years in particular, with the government's emphasis on infrastructure, the company has seen a clear opportunity as far as growth in India's story is concerned. And they've pretty much fine-tuned their strategy in line with what is taking place in India. Just to elaborate, 60% of the steel consumption in India is courtesy infrastructure, and that's a place where Tata Steel must and should have a play in. 20% is automobiles, that straight away takes up 80%, and the other 20 would come from consumer durables and other such industries. They see an opportunity by way of large capacity addition, the fact they've made quality acquisitions, and most importantly, in the current situation, the ability to increase capacity without a significant capex outgo, because these assets were very good but not managed very well. And the ability to throw a free cash flow and to ensure that the balance sheet is completely under control. So it makes for a rather interesting combination where the capacity comes to you, the debt is not out of control, and you still have very high quality manufacturing taking place, and notwithstanding the fact that you have market potential. So I think it makes for a pretty interesting and a deadly combination, if I may say so.
No, it sure does, Krishna. Also, your story mentions that, given the cash flows which Tata Steel has, there is enough and more, free play it has to keep investing and increasing capacity by 4 to 5 million tons every year.
That's again a part of the strategy. Typically, what would happen is you would look at a location, decide to kind of build a steel plant there, as they did in the case of Kalinganagar in Odisha. Here, they buy out an existing asset where the land clearances have been taken care of. So it's almost like walking into an asset, doing a bit of cleaning up, and you're ready to commence production. So one has to understand the valuation of the asset, not from just capacity point of view, but what comes with the asset apart from the manufacturing facility. So to answer your question, therefore, this is what is going to help them move from the 21 million tons they're sitting on today to 47 without going in for any more capacity acquisition or capacity, the whole process of greenfield expansion. This is classic brownfield and doing the basic M&A and getting that in place.
Anand, coming to the other important story we have, which we also mention as a cover pointer, the rebuilding of RBL Bank. Now, this was one bank where it had scorching growth. We've all followed that story until it fell upon bad times just about when, just pre-COVID, and then COVID hit, so exacerbating that problem. And now we have a new CEO, R. Subramania Kumar, who's come from DHFL and a public sector background. So it's a very interesting story because you have here you have a very robust, now scorching growth private sector bank, old private sector bank having morphed into a technology-savvy new one, and then you have this public sector banker now coming and trying to set things right. Tell us a little more about this.
So Saurabh, RBL, massive turnaround. If you see the last 12 years, but they also followed a very risky, business model, and that led to the exit of the former MD CEO Viswabir Ahuja. Now there's a new man at the helm of affair, R. Subramania Kumar, and his, there are 4 or 5 big focus area, for the new MD CEO. First is the entire portfolio. If you see the RBL, they had 60% corporate banking, and the remaining 40% was the retail. And for a small bank to have a large, 60% corporate banking was very risky. So now they are reducing that, and now it has come down to 48%. And the new chairman talks about maybe reducing it further. Second, if you look at the retail part, now within retail, almost 40% comes from credit card, which is again a very unsecured portfolio. They don't have home loan. I think it's around 6 to 7%. So again, within retail, home loan, mortgages, or maybe gold loan. A lot of secured part will now come in with the new MD CEO coming in. Third, if you look at the CASA, is the low share of low cost deposit. Bank has a very low CASA of around 30-32%. If you see the SDFC and ICICI of the world, they all have 45% plus. Even a new bank like IDFC, they have got 50% CASA. The share of low cost current and saving account. Now, third, that is going to be a big focus area for Subramania Kumar, because if you're doing mortgages, which is very competitive, where the rates are around 7 to 8%, you need a good base of CASA, current and saving account. And fourth, is the entire, cost to income, the expense part. If you see, RBL has a cost to income ratio of around, I think, in the 55-60%. If you look at SDFC, ICICI, they're in the 40s. So very high cost to income, and I'm sure that is again a focus area, for the new chairman. And last, if you see the share price, I think it just crashed from 700 odd to 80 rupees or 70 rupees.
In fact, it crashed the day the announcement of his taking over was made.
Yeah, being a public sector banker, people are expecting some, maybe some hidden NPAs. Maybe he will. There are concerns on the NPA side, so let's see what happens. So far they are very low. Their gross NPAs are only at 4%, but investors have a lot of concerns. So that's the reason.
Is there a cultural mismatch also with a public sector banker now coming in?
When you move from risky corporate assets to, let's say, better rated corporates, your yields will be very low. So you're not taking risk on the corporate side. Similarly, when you come to the retail side, you'll do mortgages. So you're moving from unsecured personal loan, credit card to more secured mortgages and all that. So the entire culture will change with that.
That's right.
You will take safer bets. When you take safer bets, your returns will be low. And when your returns will be low, market won't give you that kind of a price.
So Krishna, apart from these two wonderful stories, we also have this very interesting one on Applause. Tell us a little more about this whole hub and spoke model which Applause is putting out.
Sort of, I think, really comes down to one person who is really behind the story. That's Samir Nair, and all of us would recall what he did with the Star Network, how he reoriented the network completely with Kaun Banega Crorepati. Considered one of the sharpest minds in television programming. If you speak to people in the business, they will tell you he has that innate ability to look at a creative product and figure out a way to monetize it. And that's a trait very few people in the business can possess. In the case of Scam 92, the book came to him.
That's right.
And then he saw potential in converting that into a full-length feature film or OTT or whatever you want to call it, basically a motion film in that sense. So what they've done this is a fairly risk-averse model, because you identify the content in advance and then you produce it where the cost is complete, and then you sell it at a cost plus.
And you have partners who produce it.
Absolutely. So it makes for a fantastic combination in that sense. And I think therefore this whole orientation towards looking just a film production, considered risky and almost bordering on a gambling kind of a business, to this where the creative product is more in check, more in control, and then you figure out a way to create the product and then hawk it to the world outside. Success follows success. The moment that Scam 92, his own pedigree is not taken off again in the market. So which means that if he's got to go to the market and sell a product for the OTT network, there will be enough people interested in the whole thing. So I think the approach therefore is most fascinating.
That's right. Anand, the other point which we had in this particular issue, there's another interesting story on the mutual fund investments now overseas reaching their limit, and therefore these hordes of new retail investors who have come into the market through the mutual fund route are now finding it a bit tough to invest overseas through the mutual fund route.
Now, if you see the entire limit, Saurabh, it's the $7 billion US dollar limit, and post that, I think a month back SEBI has relaxed that limit. But there are a lot of connected issues with that. One is the entire limit. It's too low a limit. 7 billion. I think SEBI, this sort of increased that limit. Number two, once you have allowed investor, then you have bolted the door. Investors should be told upfront, and then there is a limit. 7 billion. It has been reached. Let's say 5 billion. Then many investors will not invest, because now when the market.
So mutual funds did not disclose this upfront, you say?
No, but not prominently. I mean, such a thing should be disclosed in a risk factor, Saurabh, at the top. That so far this limit, 5 billion or 6 billion has been reached, and it's only 2 billion is left. Second, I think this should be upfront in the risk factor for investor, about how much limit has been already reached and all that. If tomorrow you will allow investor to directly invest overseas, there's a huge risk factor there.
That's right.
A mutual fund is a better route.
Risk-free, yeah.
So you can increase the limit
not
here.
risk-free, minimal risk,
Yeah, and today all fintechs are selling the direct product.
That's right.
That you come and buy directly,
So there is a case for an increasing
the
limit,
mutual fund limit.
for sure.
Yeah.
So all this and much more in this particular issue of Business Today, I would definitely urge you to go and grab a copy of this wonderful issue. And thank you, Anand, and thank you very much, Krishna, for being here with us and discussing these stories. Thank you.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.